I'm Jack Donovan, author of The Way of Men, and I've been a writer and a creator for 20 years. And I want to talk a little bit about how I find inspiration. Someone asked me about this the other day, and I think that people want a simple answer. They want a task, a process, something to do. They want a daily routine. And there are some things to do that are like that. Nietzsche famously went for walks, and there is something to that. There's something about walking and moving that lends itself to thinking in a way that isn't just you staring at a blank page or a blank screen. Along the same lines, Aristotle started what would be called the Peripatetic school in Athens. It got its name from the walkways where he and other men met informally to discuss philosophy. They say that Aristotle also did a lot of walking and talking about ideas. In my men's group, the First Men, we actually tried that once. We were in Nevada with the guys, and my philosopher friend C.B. Robertson gave a talk about an idea that he was working on. Then we all asked questions and had a conversation about it as we walked through the desert. I find that this happens pretty organically with jiu-jitsu or submission grappling or whatever you want to call it. You get guys that know each other, they go to open mat, and in between rolls, they'll sit down and they'll start talking about what's going on at the gym, what's going on in the world, what's going on in their lives, and sometimes we'll get into pretty deep philosophical discussions. And there's something really correct and ancient about that. A few years ago, I visited the sites of Aristotle's Lyceum and Plato's Academy. And these were places where men went to train and wrestle and compete, but also to talk about life and ideas. There's a flow there that comes from action and interaction. I'll tell you, I have actually used things that guys have said to me at open mats in books and essays and Substacks. Because they're asking questions, they're making observations about their own lives, talking about their problems, and they're sharing information. And every once in a while, they'll say something that gives me a new angle on something that is outside of myself. They give me a good story or a good perspective on how a different man with a different life and a different personality and different challenges sees the world. And that brings me to the point that I want to make about inspiration. A lot of inspiration comes from action and interaction and reaction. I think when a lot of men think about becoming inspired, they think about going to a quiet place or meditating and then waiting for inspiration to hit them, like out of nowhere. Like they're waiting for the muse to speak to them or something. There is some value in meditation. I meditate sometimes and I've gotten a lot of good ideas from meditation. But, I think that the ideas that you get from meditation are more like a dream. Your mind is just combining and remixing images and ideas and stories that are already in there. It's not really coming from anywhere else, right? It's already in there. And since that's the case, what matters are your inputs. What are you taking in and how much are you taking in? If you're always looking at the same content, talking to the same people, listening to the same music, going to the same places, you're going to get into a rut. You need stimuli. You need new experiences. You need people to bounce ideas off of and get feedback. You need to be brainstorming. So much of the creative work that gets done in the world comes from hives of creative people working in proximity. Look at the history of art movements. They are often started, almost always started, by handfuls of guys working together and feeding off of each other's energy, writing crazy manifestos. I love manifestos. And while I think physical proximity is better, I've also done this online. The idea for this video, in fact, came from an Instagram question. So if you're having trouble finding inspiration, you probably don't need to do some kind of routine or even meditate. You don't have to do some kind of woo shit. You need to shake things up. Go seek out new experiences. Talk to new people. Do different things. Read different books. Seek out new sources of input. Things that you can react to. Ideas that you can use. Stories that you can tell. Things that you can put your own spin on in your own original way. I think that's the best way to find inspiration. I'm Jack Donovan. Stay solar.